Right, hello everyone. Truth be told, super tired. Trying to figure out what's wrong with my encoding devices and stuff like that. I'm just gonna get into it. Skip all the intros and stuff because the shorter the video, the less likely things will mess up. So anyway, this is my fourth game against Homemade Pizza. Context is I'm leading 2-1, and Homemade Pizza has to win this game to stop me from playing against Mary. Now, I've played a very similar line in our second game. I also went e4 and we also entered Sicilian c5. But in that game, I tried to enter a Alapin or open Sicilian kind of position, after which I made a move order error and lost that game after blundering in the end game. However, this time I decided to go for a more different approach with knight to c3 instead of close Sicilian. So we see knight to c6 over here, nothing unusual. Bishop to b5, the idea is to trade off the bishop for the knight in order to get a close position where I place all my pawns on the light squares. That's why a6 is not really a great move. It does make sense that you're trying to gain tempo and maybe play b5 in the future. However, this misses white's idea, which is to simply trade it off, which of course I happily did. Knight takes, b takes, and now you can see that a6 is not as useful of a move because there is no more b5. So I play f4, deciding to go for a Grand Prix setup. My plan is very simple, just to develop f3, castles, and d3. So we see here d5 taking advantage of the fact that b takes c6 was played, enabling a very early, very quick d5, potentially a e5 in the future. If I attack my pawn over pawn, I'll defend my pawn over pawn as well with d3. e6 was played to solidify the entire structure and perhaps develop the bishop along the diagonal. Knight f3, following through with my plan. And here a very strange move was played. Bishop to e7, at least it was strange to me during the game, because this sort of move doesn't really make much sense. Knight f6 is a much more proactive and much more active way to play the game, because after bishop to e7, if I were to play e5, the knight will have nowhere to go. Of course, I don't want to play e5, not because it's a bad move, in fact it's a very great move, it's just that I want to allow an f5 push in the future to just go ham on the king side. This is very typical in a lot of Sicilian structures where white will try to attack on the king side, whereas black will try to attack on the queen side. In this case, it's a question of more space on the king side versus the semi-open file on the queen side. So instead of going for the most objectively correct line, I decided to just castle, very happy, knight f6. If that's the case, why don't you play it first? e5 is still amazing here, and I still don't play it because I want to play f5 instead. So I play queen to e1, trying to take advantage of the fact that the knight is not blocking the bishop-queen blockade, and try to enable my queen to step into the king side. So black castles is not a bad move, it's just that it plays into my plans. I play knight to e5, trying to gain a tempo by attacking this pawn over here, and so allow more space for my queen to move around on the king side. Bishop to b7 was played to defend the pawn. This isn't really the greatest move because although the bishop will be terrible nonetheless, due to these pawns here, making this bishop is going to be terrible anyway. However, I think this bishop obstructs this rook from ever entering the game on both the 7 rank and on the b file. In many situations, as I mentioned earlier, white wants to attack on the king side. One of the defensive resources that black can have is to play rook to a7 and try to defend from the 7 rank from afar. Another way that black can try to achieve counterplay is to try and attack on the b file, and that is sort of obstructed by the bishop here on b7, so I don't think it's that great of a move. Perhaps a more handy idea would have been maybe to defend it with queen to c7 instead, which makes things more flexible, and perhaps tries to get the rook into the game along the 8th rank instead. Okay, after we take those with the bishop to b7, I decided to take my opportunity to play queen to g3, which was my idea of playing a knight to e5 in the first place, and this also enables f5, and I'm sort of ignoring all the counterplay on the queen side. So d4 was played. I think c4 would have been a better trying to open things up in the center. As they say, when you attack on the flank, try to attack in the center or attack on a counteracting flank. However, with d4, this sort of enables my plans of either taking advantage of the weak dark squares in black's camp, or as I played in the game, knight to e2 to maneuver all my pieces over to the king side to go for a barbarian attack. If I were playing against a 2000 plus rated player, I would normally play something like knight to a4 over here, which is a very typical maneuver. Play b3 to stop all counterplay from black on both the center, because now c4 is impossible, or on the queen side because my rook a8 does nothing and my knight does a very nice job, although on the rim, but not grim, because it controls all the weak dark squares in black's queen side. But however, since I was feeling very bloodthirsty, I wanted to go for the kill, so I played knight to e2. After knight to e7, trying to trade off pieces. It's a very nice move because it also prevents me from playing f5, because if I do play f5, there's a very nice trick. If knight takes, queen takes, bishop to d6 actually traps my queen. So f5 is sort of prevented in that way. And normally, if I were playing again a 2000 rated player, no offense to Homemade Pizza, I would play knight to c4 with the same reasons, avoid the knight trade, and to clamp down on the position, prevent all counterplay, and get in on those juicy dark squares. However, during the game, I thought, you know what? I know I'm in a better position. Why not play knight to g4? It looks like a very juicy move. It also still enables f5, prevents the trade of knights, and also kind of threatens knight to h6 in the future, which could lead to some faults or some sort of sacrifices in the future. However, I missed this very nice move that Homemade Pizza played, f5, preventing me from playing f5 and also stopping any knight to h6 ideas. Because if knight to h6 check, black can simply play king to h8, and now I have no way of getting my knight out of the danger zone, because it is completely trapped here on h6. After which I will be forced to play something like e takes f5, pawn takes my knight, and then I'll be able to get 2 pawns for the piece. However, I also get 2 connected pass pawns, but it's very, very sketchy. Even if I were able to hang on, my attack is gone, and this is not the type of position that I would like to play. Therefore, instead of this line, I decided to take the pawn once and play knight to e5 with the idea that I want my knight to be taken and I want this pawn gone, so that I have a semi-open file to work with my rook, I have the f4 square to work with my knight, and I have a diagonal for my bishop, making my pieces much more happier. Fortunately for me, black did indeed take the knight. It wasn't necessary. There were other moves that could be played, for example, playing on the queen side, for example, but knight takes e5 suits my plans very much. After f takes e5, now this is the line that I saw, because now I have many ideas of trying to move all my pieces in on the king side, and this e6 timely push of e6 will be able to break through. It will be very nice for me to break through on the king side. So bishop to c8, a very, very nice move for many, many reasons. For one, the bishop is sort of helping out with getting involved in the game by moving over to this more active diagonal. Also, it allows the rook to help out the defense by playing rook to a7 at some point. However, it doesn't prevent my plan of attacking on the king side, so I proceed through my plan to play bishop to h6, because there is no easy way to defend the g7 square. Of course, if my g6 was played, I can just win the rook or exchange. For example, both f8 and f6 are defended by obstructed by the rook or defended by my pawn, so the bishop cannot help to defend the square. And of course, if king to h8, this is just checkmate. And king to f7, although in the game I didn't really calculate fully, I thought it was just completely winning. After queen takes g7, either way king moves, I can just play rook to e1, and I'm completely crushing. So during the game, the only logical way to defend the square is indeed rook to f7, and now I had the idea of playing e6, which was my idea of playing knight to e5 in the first place. So I very confidently said, oh, you know what? I want to play e6, so I'm going to enable that by playing knight to f4, and with this, there is no way at all to actually stop me from playing e6, and that is true. There is no way for me no way for black to prevent e6. In fact, the best try I saw during the game was to give up the bishop for the advanced pawn and try to hold this way instead of attack my bishop and so on and so forth, trying to play this position. But of course, upper keys, I'm very, very happy that. The reason why this is so problematic for black is that in the case where, let's say, there is no way, because if bishop blocks tries to block the pawn, of course I can just take the bishop. And let's say, I don't know, maybe g6. This doesn't work because now I have knight takes g6. Let's say pawn takes g6, queen takes g6, and king to h8 is only move, and I'll be able to win the rook. So this doesn't work. And I think bishop to f8 doesn't work as well, because I have e6 here. Then you have to move the rook somewhere. If you prepare this, you will take e1, and this pass pawn is very, very strong. This pass pawn is very, very, very strong. So I thought that didn't work as well. And so the only logical way for black to play would be what happened, not the only logical way, but one of the other responses that I saw as well was g5, which was played in the game. Unfortunately unfortunately for me, there was actually a tactical shot that allowed black to completely take over the game here, which is actually bishop to h4. Yes, this doesn't stop e6 at all. After moving my bishop away, black will be able to take my bishop and I am able to get in e6. However, this pass pawn isn't as strong with one less piece into the game and without my bishop taking control over the dark squares. So this position is much more favorable for black. But thankfully, instead g5 was played. I saw this and I wasn't afraid at all because I know that the pawn is still pinned to the king, and it's a nice move. If a few more tempo was given up, perhaps black will be able to consolidate with the additional space created with g5. However, this didn't stop e6 at all, and you'll realize that with the pawn and the bishop, the rook is almost trapped with only f6 left, which was played. But this allows bishop takes g5, attacking the rook, and now the rook has to either go all the way back to f8 and allow checkmate for at least winning the queen, or giving the rook this way. But the best try, I guess, was to go for rook to g6 here, trying to pin the bishop and maybe introduce some sort of tactical complications with this attack here on bishop. However, fortunately for me, the tactics work in my favor. The knight takes g6. Let's say if bishop takes g5, I think I can simply play e7. I think I saw e7, but even rook takes f5 is good enough. Let's say takes and rook takes g5, and black's king has nowhere to run. But instead, h6 g6 was played instead. But here I can very simply straight, and I saw that I was either winning the queen or forcing checkmate. After queen takes g6, queen to g7 was the only way. Give up let the queen trade happen and just lose a few moves later. But due to the match situation, I just had to hope that I couldn't find forced mate and decided to play king to f8 instead. However, due to this beautiful mating net here, the king is completely trapped, and rook takes f5, queen to f7, and queen takes f7 is checkmate on the board. And with that, I will end the video as soon as possible. I will be announcing something soon, but I'll probably make a separate video for that so that I get the video out in as good of a quality as possible.